My fiancée was arguing with her bridesmaids on speaker about table decor. I was in the other room, until I heard, he's fine. But if I ever get the chance with Connor again. So I let her finish planning, then gave the venue to a couple on the wait list. For free. Today, 37 missed calls. My name's George. I'm 29, work in IT for a logistics firm, and until about 3 weeks ago, I thought I was marrying the woman of my dreams. Her name's Lena. We met 4 years ago at a co-worker's barbecue. She was standing near the cooler arguing with someone over what counted as real guacamole. I liked her right away. She was sharp, bold, the kind of person who walks into a room and somehow takes ownership of the air. We moved in together a year later, got engaged 2 years after that, and for most of our relationship, I would have sworn I hit the jackpot, until I overheard something I wasn't supposed to. It was a random Tuesday night. Nothing special. We'd had leftovers for dinner. Lena had a few of her bridesmaids on speakerphone, going back and forth about table decor and flower arrangements. I was in the living room with my laptop, finalizing the RSVP list and sorting the playlist into dinner and dancing tracks. From where I sat, I could hear everything from the bedroom. But at that point, I'd learned to tune out the endless debates about napkin colors and lighting schemes. I wasn't really listening. Not until one of the girls, Chelsea, I think, joked, "Can we just throw all the guys in a corner and do this ourselves?" The room exploded with laughter. Then I heard Lena say, through the speaker, in that half-mocking tone she used when she was being funny, but wasn't exactly joking. "Honestly, George is fine. But if I ever get the chance with Connor again, I'm taking it." I paused. My hand hovered over the trackpad, cursor frozen mid-scroll. I didn't say anything. Didn't move. I waited for anyone to say what? "Or you're joking, right?" But no. Chelsea just laughed. Another voice chimed in. "You're terrible," like it was cute. Then Lena giggled and said, "I mean, relax. Obviously. Now gold trim or ivory." That was it. The conversation moved on like she hadn't just casually admitted she'd cheat on me with her ex if the opportunity came up. I sat there for a few seconds. I think I blinked twice. Then I closed the RSVP spreadsheet, got up, and went to grab a glass of water. Lena called out, "Hey babe, are we still good for the menu tasting tomorrow?" I told her sure. Everything's good. Because right then, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. I just felt like I'd been let in on a secret I wasn't meant to hear. And I knew I needed to hear more. I'm not a dramatic guy. I don't throw scenes. I don't go through phones or stalk social media. I don't do ultimatums. But I do observe. And from that moment on, I was watching Lena differently. Listening differently. Not just to what she said, but how she said it. What she avoided. What she doubled down on. That night in bed, I asked her if she was excited to see everyone at the wedding. She said yeah, especially people from college. Then she added, "I think Connor's in town now. Not sure if he's coming though." She said it casually, without even turning her head from her phone. Like his name didn't mean anything. But now I knew better. And I didn't confront her. I didn't even bring it up. I just replied, "Oh, cool," and let her think I'd forgotten the conversation I was never supposed to hear. The next few days, she was extra sweet. Not in the guilty kind of way. In the I'm busy and stressed and don't have time to worry about anything but place cards kind of way. She had 2 calls with the caterer. Finalized the seating chart. Sent her sister a passive-aggressive text about not bringing her weird boyfriend to the rehearsal dinner. All business. Meanwhile, I played the role I'd always played, the supportive groom. The calm one. The one who kept the receipts and made backup copies of contracts and handled the logistics when she got overwhelmed. And she kept planning her wedding. Our wedding. Down to the tiniest floral detail. What she didn't realize was that I had just started planning, too. But not the kind of wedding she was expecting. Lena was always better at the spotlight. I was better at the behind the scenes. She made the vision boards, I made the budgets. She picked the songs, I made the backup USB. She joked that I was her personal project manager, and I used to laugh at that. Now it just felt accurate. The day after I heard that call, I started tracking everything. Not her. Not her texts. I didn't dig through her life. I watched how she talked. How she lit up when she mentioned Connor. How she'd brush past my suggestions in favor of what he used to like. When I asked what she wanted on the dessert table, she said, "Connor always loved tiramisu." Then caught herself and added, "Wait, what were we saying?" Things like that. Small cracks. And the worst part? She didn't even realize she was saying them. The next Saturday, we were at the venue for the final walkthrough. It was a beautiful place, a converted vineyard with exposed brick and big hanging lights. I'd found it, actually, back in February, when we still felt solid. I remember watching her walk through it the first time, barefoot, pretending she was dancing down the aisle. She looked back at me and said, "This is it. This is our place." That was before the phone call. Before the name Connor became a trapdoor under every sentence. Now, As we walked through the layout again, I wasn't admiring the venue. I was studying it, measuring what she loved most. Not because I was going to make it happen, but because I was going to take it away. We stopped by the office on the way out. The coordinator, Mia, handed me the final invoice and mentioned something I hadn't known. By the way, if anything changes, let us know soon. We do have a waitlist. Lena was on the phone. I gave Mia a polite nod. Waitlist? Yeah, a few couples asked about this date after you booked. If you ever need to release it, we can transfer the contract to someone else. Non-refundable deposit, but it can be passed on. That stuck with me. Not the refund. Not the date. The word transfer. That night, I went online and looked up the venue's policies. Sure enough, what Mia said was true. The contract allowed for full transfer of the date and services. As long as both parties signed off, it could be done within 14 days of the event. And we were at 15. I remember staring at the screen for a full minute, hands on the keyboard, thinking, one more week. That's all I need. From that day on, I doubled down on being calm, accommodating, supportive. I sent her a menu mock-up PDF I made in Canva. I fixed the typo on the RSVP website. I helped fold place cards. She smiled a lot that week. It made everything easier. One night, we were curled up watching a movie and she said, I know I'm hard to deal with right now. Thank you for not running away. I kissed her temple and said, of course, and meant none of it. A few days later, Lena's mom called. She wanted a final guest count for the hotel blocks. Lena was in the shower, so I picked up. We chatted briefly, and at one point her mom laughed and said, you're really the only thing holding this wedding together. It sounded like a compliment. It felt like confirmation. The next morning, I emailed the venue manager. Hi Mia, we're exploring some changes. If we decide to release our date, can I confirm the process of transferring it to another couple? Best, George. Her reply came within the hour. Hi George. Yes, the process is simple. Once we have a written cancellation and confirmation that the next couple is ready to move forward, we'll transfer the contract. Let me know when you're ready. Warmly, Mia. I bookmarked that email and waited. The countdown hit 10 days. Lena's stress levels were rising. Her sister changed her RSVP. The band requested a second sound check. She started snapping more often, making little digs like, why do I feel like I'm doing this alone? Even though I was the one confirming every vendor. She didn't know I was working harder than ever, just not in the direction she assumed. On day 9, I went by the venue on my lunch break. I asked Mia to show me the top couple on the wait list. It was a pair named Dana and Mark. She showed me their request. Same guest count, same setup. Their wedding planner had even toured the venue already. They'd been on the list for 3 months. Would they still be interested? I asked. Mia smiled. They call once a week to check. I said, tell them the date's open. And it's a gift. She blinked. You mean you're donating it? I nodded. Why? I said, just not the right fit anymore. Then I signed the release form and walked out. 9 days before the wedding, George signed away the venue contract with the same pen Lena had used to sign the catering agreement. It was a quiet, almost clerical task. No dramatic gesture, no satisfying click of a stamp. Just ink and silence. The couple next on the list, Dana and Mark, responded within 2 hours. They were ecstatic. Their planner emailed immediately to confirm payment. Mia looped in her manager, and the venue date was officially transferred. George kept that information to himself. He didn't feel pride or guilt. What he felt was something colder, calm detachment. Everything had become a process now, something to organize, something to schedule. He had been managing her wedding. Now he was managing her fall. Over the next few days, Lena continued planning as if nothing had changed. George played along without hesitation. When she asked about finalizing the headcount for the caterer, he gave her a precise number, including the vegetarian options. When she requested changes to the seating chart, he stayed up with her till midnight to shuffle guests around. She talked about flowers. He talked about lighting. She picked the first dance song. He made a Spotify playlist for the rest of the evening. Everything on the surface appeared intact. That was the point. There was no satisfaction in watching her bubble grow. It wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. It was a decision to take control of something that had quietly slipped from his hands. The moment she said she would go back to another man if given the chance, George realized she had never truly chosen him. And if she hadn't chosen him with her whole heart, then she did not deserve the life he had built for her. He stopped sleeping well, not from anxiety, but because the silence at night reminded him how much he had tolerated. The little comments, the half-hearted gestures, the way she rolled her eyes when he brought up budget concerns, the subtle way she seemed to perform their relationship when other people were watching, but tuned out the moment the door closed behind them. And now, even with the wedding off, though she didn't yet know, he continued performing, too. It was a final courtesy. One last week of peace before reality arrived. 3 days before the wedding, Lena's sister flew into town. The energy in the apartment shifted. Boxes of decorations lined the hallway. Extra robes for the bridal party were unpacked. Their guest bathroom filled with curling irons and makeup bags. George took a step back from the apartment, staying later at work and eating dinner separately. No one questioned it. He started parking 2 streets away. He didn't want the moving trucks, the caterers, or the photographer to associate his face with the location. When the calls started flooding in, he wanted the silence to hit harder. He did, however, print a full itinerary, clean layout, venue address, times, contact numbers. He laminated it and placed it on the kitchen counter, directly beneath the printed welcome sign Lena had made for the rehearsal dinner. That evening, she came home buzzing with energy. She had just picked up her dress. She gave George a distracted kiss and dropped her bag on the couch. He asked how it looked. She said it was perfect. He almost told her then, but instead, he nodded and walked into the other room. The night before the wedding, Lena stayed at her sister's hotel room. George helped her carry her bags down. She wore an oversized hoodie over her bridal robe bag, makeup already half done from her test run. She looked excited, even serene, like a woman about to step into a life she believed she'd earned. When she hugged him goodbye in the parking lot, she whispered something he didn't fully catch, something about forever. He didn't ask her to repeat it. She left without knowing the entire wedding had already been dismantled. After she drove away, George returned to the apartment. He took out the wedding binder, Lena's pride and joy. She had been filling it for a year. Swatches of fabric, handwritten notes, printed menus, photographer quotes, song lists, and a seating chart in 3 versions. He removed the pages he had created. Everything with his handwriting, his money, his effort. He pulled them out and dropped them into a small file folder. Then he opened the laptop, deleted the shared Google Drive folder, and logged out of the joint email they had created for RSVPs. He went to bed early. He expected a message that night, some last-minute question or panic. But there was nothing. She was with her bridal party, probably drinking champagne, posting on her private story, bragging about how she had done it all without a wedding planner. The morning of the wedding arrived without sound. George made coffee. Black, the way she hated it. The apartment was clean, organized, untouched. There were no decorations, no dress bag, no shoes lined up at the door. Just the wedding itinerary, centered on the table, and a sticky note placed above it. It read, "You might want to call the venue." He folded his laptop, placed it in his bag, and walked out. He didn't slam the door. He didn't look back. There were no texts, no calls, not yet. That wouldn't happen until the guests started arriving at the vineyard and realized there were no chairs set up, no staff waiting, no music playing. He didn't delete her number. He didn't block anyone. He didn't hide. He just disappeared from her version of the story. It was close to noon when the first message came in. Not from Lena, but from her mother. A missed call, then a voicemail. George didn't listen to it. He turned his phone on silent and placed it face down on the passenger seat. He was driving with no destination, just movement. The city was bright. It felt cruelly normal. He passed a bakery where they had once tried wedding cakes. Drove past the photography studio where she had done her bridal portraits. Everything was still standing, untouched by her betrayal. And that somehow made it easier. It took almost an hour for Lena to call. When she did, it was 3 calls back to back, then a long message that only began with his name. He didn't listen to that one either. It wasn't until an hour later, after 23 missed calls, 5 from her friends, 3 from her father, and 1 from an unknown number, that George parked outside a small bookstore downtown. He stepped inside, bought a journal, and sat down in the cafe next door. He opened to the first page and wrote a single line. "This is the price of silence." He didn't need to scream. He didn't need to post screenshots. He didn't need to explain. He had listened, quietly, while she revealed exactly who she was. And in return, he had let her finish planning a wedding that would never happen. By the time George turned his phone back on that evening, it had over 40 missed calls and 12 voicemails. The texts were worse. Paragraphs from Bridesmaids, 2 messages from Lena's sister, a flood of group chats lighting up with question marks and panic. It was Lena's 5th message that finally pierced the surface. "What did you do? Everyone is here. Where are you? This isn't funny." He read it once, then deleted it. He knew what she was doing in that moment, standing in the gravel driveway of the venue, her makeup slowly melting under the heat, surrounded by 50 guests and no staff, no chairs, no flowers, no aisle. He pictured her holding her phone like it was a weapon, trying to call everyone at once, her hands shaking, realizing too late that this wasn't a prank. This was the fallout. This was real. The venue had confirmed everything. George had signed over the reservation days ago. The couple who received it had already begun setup. Lena's entire event was gone. Tables, DJ, lighting, and catering slot, all reassigned. The guests were confused. Her family was angry. Some had flown in that morning. A few thought there had been a tragic accident. Others assumed Lena was having a breakdown. But Lena knew. She knew because of the sticky note. Because of the empty apartment. Because George hadn't answered once. Around 6:30 p.m., he received a text that was only 2 words. Please talk. He didn't. That night, Lena showed up outside his apartment. She buzzed 3 times. He let her wait. She called his name through the intercom, said she just wanted to understand, said there had to be a reason. She said she was sorry, said it was a joke, said she didn't mean it, said anything she thought might undo what had already been done. George stood in the hallway, listening to the intercom echo, but didn't touch the button. Eventually, she stopped calling. The next morning, she returned. This time, she waited in her car for an hour before knocking. George answered the door. She looked like someone who had been crying for a full day. Her voice was raw. Her hair was pulled back in a way that made her look much younger and far less certain than usual. She asked him why. She asked when he had done it. She asked how long he'd known. George didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He didn't quote her words back to her. He didn't mention the phone call. He simply looked at her and asked one question. Would you have said that if you knew I was listening? Her expression shifted. She started to speak, then stopped. She looked down at the floor, her face suddenly drained of defense. He didn't wait for her to respond. He told her the lease was under his name, and that she had a few days to pack her things. He told her that all the vendors had been notified, and that the apartment utilities would be in her name starting next month, if she wanted to keep it. He told her he had already spoken with his attorney regarding the shared expenses. There was no fight, no screaming, no begging, just logistics, just clean closure. She stood there, absorbing each word like they were numbers on a spreadsheet, logical, inevitable, impossible to argue with. At one point, she asked if there was someone else. He didn't respond. He simply walked past her and opened the front door, signaling it was time to go. She stepped out into the hallway, stunned. He closed the door gently. Later that night, Lena sent one last message. I get it now. I really do. I'm sorry. George didn't respond. He went to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water, and sat on the couch. He didn't feel triumphant. He didn't feel broken. What he felt was weightless. Like he'd finally stepped out of a life that was never truly his to begin with. The next morning, he received a message from Mia at the venue. She said Dana and Mark's wedding had gone beautifully. They wanted to send a thank you note. Did George want to share an address? He smiled for the first time in 2 days and replied yes. Lena never came back for her things. A week later, George dropped off 2 boxes at her sister's condo and left without knocking. No one followed up. There were no reunions, no second chances, no public closure. Just a woman who said something she never thought would matter, and a man who heard it and decided she'd planned her own exit without even knowing it. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.